For those of you unaware with the Purge, it's the idea that for 12 hours, everything is legal. Murder, looting, literally anything and everything is allowed. Whatever happens in those 12 hours is fair game. Anything before or afterward is applicable to regular law. Meaning if someone were to steal from you during the Purge and you stole the item back afterward, you'd be guilty of stealing. I know. Crazy, right? And given our current situation, it would be interesting to see what would happen if there were no laws for one night. Today on Life's Biggest Questions, we're asking, what if the Purge happened during the pandemic? How's it going, guys? Jared Bronstein here. Welcome back to LBQ. Stick around until the end of this one for some bonus content, and let me know in the comments below, if you could do one thing on the night of the Purge, what would it be? For now, let's get right into this one and find out what my answer would be at the very end. If you've seen the Purge movies, you would immediately think that everyone would kill each other during the Purge. Violence would spike one night, which leads to a low violent crime rate throughout the year. Now, I can't say for sure, but I'd like to believe the majority of humanity aren't violent, nor would they just want to kill people to get it out of their system. So for starters, I don't think if the Purge were real, people would be walking the streets with guns and knives looking to kill in groups. If anything, I think most would go out armed out of fear and use it as a form of self-defense, or to ward off any potential attackers. Although the majority wouldn't go out to be violent, a handful would, simply because they can. That being said, I believe the majority that do go out would do so with the intentions of either looting or taking money. Whether people simply go into a Walmart and take a 60-inch TV, or decide to be a part of something bigger, like a bank heist, is up to them. However, I'm going to say a lot of people would want to go somewhere safe, whether it be another country or down the street to their friend's shelter. Assuming this only were to happen in the United States, it's possible a handful of citizens head to Canada for a mini vacation, while others find safe, secure places to stay closer to home. Of course, the most important factor regarding this entire video is that we are still currently in the middle of a pandemic. Would people be willing to go out and risk getting infected to achieve whatever it is their reasoning for going out for in the first place is? For some people, yes, they'd be willing to go out and risk getting sick if it means they get a brand new TV, while others simply wouldn't want to take the chance. Those that do go out would not adhere to the social distancing rules or anything along those lines, so you could imagine people would be fighting over things like TVs or sound systems. Others would try to steal cars, and some would be looting luxurious stores, or at least attempt to. These stores all have the right to defend their products as well, so it's quite possible, aside from having top-of-the-line security measures installed, companies hire extra security to protect their most valuable products. If I could do just one thing, it wouldn't be anything that would harm anyone. I'm not into that. I'd probably just want to take a bunch of cash. But I would never actually do such an illegal thing. This is, of course, all hypothetical, just to clarify. And I'm not promoting this idea either. I love the laws and the government. Of course, this is all hypothetical. But given our current situation, with cities and even some countries going on complete lockdown, people's priorities have shifted, to say the least. You may or may not have seen the viral videos flooding Twitter and Instagram of people fighting over toilet paper. Seriously, throwing fists over some Charmaine or Royale or whatever brand that you use. And because of this, odds are, although some would still be eyeing a brand new flat screen, the majority of the people that do go out would be going out with the intention of stocking up on things they currently need but can't afford. What that is really varies per person, and due to the fact that we are currently still dealing with the said pandemic, it's not like the shelves would be fully stocked, ready for people to steal. If anything, it's not only possible but extremely likely that stores remove a lot of their products from their shelves or stop restocking days before the Purge in an effort to reduce losses. Aside from toilet paper, things like medical masks are in high demand. This could lead to people possibly going into hospitals armed, demanding for such masks. Issue is, even hospitals are running low. Would people go to the actual manufacturers to pick up boxes of the masks before they're shipped out? It's possible, but again, companies wouldn't just leave products laying around, ready to be stolen, if they were advised about the Purge beforehand. Although it's unclear what people would steal, as that depends specifically on each person, another interesting factor would be how people act during the Purge in general. It doesn't necessarily promote violence. Just because it's illegal doesn't mean you have to do it. So maybe people would adhere to social distancing. Wearing masks wouldn't be to hide your identity, but instead to hopefully filter out the air you breathe. And maybe two people seeing each other on the street would greet one another, as if it were any other day. Of course, the opposite could also be true. With people so on guard, they always have their backs up against the wall, thinking everyone is out to get them. Especially during a pandemic, it would seem that people would be even less likely to take part in the Purge. Even if the majority of the public normally did take a part of it, and it involved more looting and less violence, similar to Black Friday, this time around, things would be different. The virus has kept many at home from work and social gatherings, and although no laws is a chance to even go out with some friends for some drinks, the risk of getting infected wouldn't be worth it. Which means even those that would normally partake would likely just stay home to ensure they don't catch anything, nor do they bring anything home to the people they live with. For people trying to flee the country, well, they may have problems as well, as most countries have shut down their borders. Currently, Canada is still allowing Americans to travel for things like work and goods, meaning if American citizens were seeking asylum for a night, odds are they would be permitted. However, if millions of Americans tried to come to Canada, especially during the pandemic, that would be a different story. Canada is already trying to get a handle on the virus, so allowing millions of others to come to the country, even for a day or two, would be quite foolish. It's likely Canada shuts down their borders altogether, leaving American citizens stuck for the night. And desperate times call for desperate measures. Those with families, such as young children, would certainly spend the night doing whatever is necessary to make sure they are safe, regardless of what that means. But as previously mentioned, this wouldn't be as exciting as the Hollywood movies. People wouldn't just be shooting each other dead on the street, at least for the most part. There would be some people who do, in areas where it already happens, so it would be like any other day. Other than that, I don't believe people would go on vicious rampages and kill anyone they see. Those without anywhere to go would likely be provided a shelter for safe asylum, contrary to one of the movie's plots. At the end of the day, the government would provide protection to those who want and need it. They wouldn't just let it become a free-for-all. Although the reality is, those with more money would tend to do better off. They would be able to afford better security measures, whether that means alarm systems, weapons, panic rooms, whatever it is. Someone who could afford to be well prepared will likely do better than someone who can't. And speaking of money, most people haven't been making much or any during this pandemic. Businesses have shut down or stalled, at the very least, and many people aren't getting any sort of unemployment benefit or insurance. Some people are having a hard time paying their bills, while others can barely afford to keep food on the table. Again, desperate times lead to desperate measures. So although people would be fearing the virus, if it came down to them potentially getting sick or getting food for the family, odds are that person will take their chances. It would lead to them having to self-quarantine for 14 days following the purge, just to be sure they didn't catch anything. But for someone who couldn't afford food to come home with a week or two worth, it would be a dream. It seems everyone's situation is different, and ultimately that decides how they would behave during a purge. Given our current situation, if there was a purge during a pandemic, I think even less people would end up taking part simply out of weighing the pros and cons. Anything you could potentially get isn't worth coming down with the virus. And to further push that narrative, it's quite possible brands have online sales after the purge, similar to Cyber Monday. I can see the headlines now. In a hope to prevent people from purging, Amazon to cut prices in half next day, or something like hottest post-purge deals. Now maybe that wouldn't happen, and maybe people would in fact go out. This could just lead to the virus spreading even more among the US, which would delay the containment of the breakout even longer. While they were dealing with all of that, as well as the aftermath of the purge itself, which would include a major cleanup among many cities, other countries would be focusing on a vaccine or a cure, and probably laughing at how crazy the US is. And that does it for this one, guys. I want to know if the purge did happen during the pandemic, would you take part? What would you do? And no, your comments aren't an admission to guilt. All of this is hypothetical. So nothing I've said, nor do you type, would be held up in a court of law. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying these things so they can't be used against me in the future. So yeah, if the purge was real, I would probably just go out and maybe rob a bank or loot something, or maybe like get a Rolls Royce. I don't know. Just something with money. Just to have like a lot of money in my pocket. It'd be nice. Anyways, guys, let's reply to some comments now from the video. What if the Megalania didn't go extinct? I think that's how you say it, Megalania. I didn't do the video, so it doesn't matter if I know or not. Because, you know, I didn't do my research on that one. I think Che did that one, so can't chirp me. Lucius the Goose said, I'm super high right now. So I read it as, what if Megalovania didn't go extinct? Is that what you guys do? You guys just do drugs and get super high and watch our channel? Because I'd probably do that. Joey P said, next what if video, what if me and Cindy from Jimmy Neutron kissed? Oh, I think Joey's got a little crush there on Cindy. Dude, why don't you just ask her out? I'm sure she'll say yes. Good luck, though. Atlas MW said, short story, if they didn't go extinct, then they will be alive now. Yep, you got it, bud. You should be a scientist, because that was a great observation. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. I've been your host, Jared Bronstein. You guys have been watching Life's Biggest Questions. As always, we'll see you in the next one.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the most inquisitive channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions, the place where we advocate for socio-economic change without the causation of violence. As always, I'll be your disembodied narrator, Jack Finch, as we hit the panic button, watch the titanium shutters unfold, kick up our feet and wait for this whole thing to blow over, as we timidly ask the question, what if the purge was real for 7 days? Now, we've already proposed the question of the Purge being real, 12 hours where all crime is legal across a dystopian United States of America. You know the drill and how it all plays out, but what if we stick you one further? What if we stretch that out to an entire week of purginess? Well, let's find out. Before we jump into that car crash of complete carnage though, make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're a fan of this video, LBQ, or just dystopian hypotheticals in general. Also, be a dear and hit that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with our latest and greatest uploads. On with the question. In the real world, as you know, The Purge was a 2014 dystopian horror film that went on to spawn a 4-film franchise, as well as a hotly controversial new Netflix series that debuted this month. While in no way being a franchise held in fond regard by the modern world, it still delivered itself to be an interesting concept with some surprisingly intellectual foundations. Particularly in the climate that we live in today, we often find ourselves thinking how society would react to such visceral complications. These violent delights have violent ends and all that. Although we'll approach this question with a light-hearted mentality, the truth behind this question is ultimately a tragic reality. In other words, we only need to briefly look back through several decades to see what happens when a lawful society breaks down, and starker still, that a lot of chaos can happen in just a week. Countries that have next to nothing in terms of criminal justice, and countries that are torn apart by civil war and international conflict waged by modern superpowers, where every day is a struggle without the support of police safety and law enforcement. So what if that occurred in the United States, not just for 12 hours under the 25th constitutional amendment, but an entire week of lawlessness, murder and criminal rampage? Well, for one, you can safely say that this would be the last ever purge under a government sanction, purely for the fact that a week's worth of carnage and lawless destruction would be the undoing of the purge itself. But that doesn't mean we'd be in for a golden age of prosperity and mutual cooperation. Nope, far from it. The United States has a population of 325.7 million people as of the 2017 census, and that's a hell of a lot of people to put through severe emotional and physical trauma prolonged for an entire week, and that's only considering the people that survived such an onslaught. And once all that's over, you just sound the buzzer and hope everything will be fine again? Not a chance. 12 hours is tentative enough, but entire empires can crumble in less than 7 days, even without half its population being armed to the teeth with military-grade weaponry. But, and a huge but, granted, this is all under the assumption of a defiant population, because if we have a complicit population, then it's a completely different story. Before we dive into that can of worms though, let's wind it back a little bit. At what point will we find ourselves with a 7-day purge? Is this the reward for several decades worth of successful purging and a government that somehow managed to cling onto such a model? Or is this the product of a purge that got out of hand and a government that couldn't keep a lid on it? If we take our first possibility, then we need only to look towards instances such as the Milgram experiment and the Zimbardo prison study to understand that the likelihood of it happening is an entirely possible scenario. History has tragically shown us so. The Holocaust, the Red Terror and the Stalinist purges, Tiananmen Square, as both studies ultimately found, a malevolent authority can accommodate psychopathic and sadistic tendencies, and a week-long celebration purge could be implemented as part of, say, a 10th, 25th or 50th anniversary of the purge under a completely complicit yet twistedly murderous society that would be met with thunderous applause. Put your Hunger Games hats on, I don't know, but the thing with these things is there's always a resistance of some sort. I'm an optimist and I believe in the infallible nature of the human spirit, joy as an act of resistance, and undoubtedly, however small and defeated, there'd be a number of people in the United States who were sick and tired of the murderous purge, and all it would take is a period of time where they could get things rolling and seize back control. Let's say, I don't know, a week? Say that this week-long anniversary purge is even after 10 years of purging. That's 10 years of training for a disgruntled resistance force. Enough time to formulate a more than competent plan of attack. After 25 years, this becomes a lifelong dedication to overthrowing the purge. 50 years, that's some pretty hardened, grizzled old purge veterans with a vendetta to boot. Let's take into account foreign involvement too. Through the Libyan revolution that began in February 2011, we saw an entire nation mobilize and take back their own country, where rebel forces coordinated with NATO-backed operations to seize Colonel Gaddafi's corrupt regime. Reportedly, the rebels orchestrated this via Twitter, directly messaging airstrike coordinates to NATO forces. There's no saying what would ignite under a week-long purge with a dedicated resistance force that had foreign backing. Let's say they mobilized their forces to one specific area on the first day, Austin, Texas. Tactically speaking, Texas is close enough to Mexico to support foreign involvement and strategically spaced for launch into the rest of the country, with coastal access and strategic passage through the Rio Grande. By Tuesday, the entire state has been taken under rebel control, serving as a springboard for other resistance forces across the country. By Wednesday, the majority of the West Coast has fallen in line, with Canadian backing through British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. By this time, the new founding fathers of America realized that their own undoing comes in the form of the 25th Amendment, an attempt to scramble the military to take back control of the rebel states. Too late. After a series of rebel-led coups in the United States Marine Corps, the military falls out of the commander-in-chief's hands. Purge loyalists race back to Washington, D.C. from across the country. The rebel states slowly march forward. On the 6th day, the capital is under siege, and on the 7th day, there was no resting, only revolution. Maybe it would take longer than a week to topple the new founding fathers of America. With the majority of their assets seized by a foreign-backed revolution, it'd only be a matter of time before the Purge was a bloody stain on a dark, dark history book. Either that, or they just carry on murdering each other for another 100 years. Well, what do you guys think would happen if the Purge was real for 7 days? Why don't you leave your thoughts in the comment box down below.
Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm Charlotte Dobre, and because of the overwhelming response we received on our video, What If the Purge Was Actually Real?, we've decided to make a part 2. Yes, there is a lot more to address when it comes to a Purge reality. Starting things off with, theoretically, how would the United States government allow the Purge to take place? For those who are just tuning in, the film series The Purge tackles a theoretical question. What if all crime was legal for 12 continuous hours? Excluding using explosives, murder would be legal, theft, any crime imaginable. High-up government officials would be granted immunity from the Purge and are not allowed to be harmed. Police, fire, and emergency medical services would be unavailable until the next day at 7 a.m. I know what you're thinking. How would it even be remotely possible for the US government to allow the Purge to take place at all? The ways in which the Purge could become a reality are as follows. A series of incidents prompted a public outcry for protection and vengeance against the increasing number of homeless people. Perhaps the US is overrun with homeless refugees, or there's an economic crisis that results in a large portion of the population being homeless and unemployed, which would then cause a surge in crime. Desperate people would turn to violence and robbery. If people couldn't get a legitimate job, they would likely turn to a life of crime. The government can no longer afford to support all these people through government programs, so the only other solution would be to eradicate them. Congress then ratifies the 28th Amendment, which states that every citizen has a constitutional yearly right to purge. Every year on March 21st, the Purge allows for the elimination of the needy, poor, the sick, and non-contributing members of society. It could also be a way for the government to cleanse the US of criminals. Let's face it, the people that would be walking around during the Purge setting fire to things and killing everyone in their path would be criminals and gangs. It would allow for a full-scale gang war to take place in the streets, where criminals would just end up killing each other off over territory or unsettled disputes. The Purge could become a reality because of simply overpopulation. It is difficult to imagine how world governments will combat the very real possibility of an overpopulation problem in the future. Even with birth restrictions like in China, the United States only has so much space. So, just because high-ranking government officials would be granted immunity, that doesn't mean other public figures would be. One thing we didn't mention in our previous video is that many celebrities and famous people would be targeted by the Purge. Any public figure would be at risk. There are already psychos out there who stalk and target celebrities. Imagine what would happen if all crime was legal for one night. People would plan for the night of the Purge all year long. No one would want to be in the public eye if it would mean that people would want to target them during the night of the Purge. Anyone in a position of authority, like even a teacher, could also be a target. Bigots and racists would come out in full force and would go after people of color, and vice versa. People would live in fear all year until the Purge occurred. Every American would own at least one long-range rifle and would be trained on how to use it. Many people would leave the US altogether and move to a different country. I wouldn't want to stay in a country that allowed such a thing to take place. A real-life Purge might result in mass immigration to places like Canada and Mexico. Refugees would pour out of America, and chances are, some people might not return once the Purge is over. What would they have to return to if buildings are set ablaze and belongings are stolen? From an economic standpoint, the stock market would crash every year before the Purge. Property prices in well-defended mountainous areas would soar, because everybody would be scrambling to buy a home that's out of reach and protected. High-tech security systems would be something that the elite would invest in, and perhaps most people would limit their belongings and personal possessions for fear they would get stolen or destroyed. But the Purge might not be as bad as everyone thinks. The core premise of the Purge is a pretty pessimistic view of humankind. Sure, there's a lot of crappy people out there, and definitely quite a few psychos, but the majority of us don't actually want to rape and murder people. Let's face it, during the Purge, many people would just hide out in their basements and bunkers watching the news, waiting out the night. If everyone was at home watching television, the prices for commercials would likely cost as much as a commercial that airs during during the Super Bowl. Cybercrime would also run rampant. People wouldn't necessarily go to stores to loot them. Why do that when you can go on a spending spree from the comfort and protection of your own home with a stolen credit card? Let's be honest, no government would legally allow the Purge to take place, but it's still interesting to theorize what would happen if they did. What would you do if the Purge was real? Let us know in the comments below. For now, I'm Charlotte Dobre for Life's Biggest Questions. Don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more answers.
Hello internet and welcome back to the most inquisitive channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions, the place where we pride ourselves on being a prime resource for any hypothetical end of the world scenarios. What's going on, guys? As per usual, I'll be your disembodied floating voice, Jack Finch, as we once again head back to that fictional United States of America, hit the gym, load up on the weapons locker, and invest our life savings in an impenetrable panic room and curiously ask the question, how could we survive the Purge? Roll the clip.
News 13 wishes anyone who is not participating in this year's Purge a safe evening, and for those releasing the beast, a successful cleanse.
Release the beast? Really? Who the hell approved that in the writer's room? Anyway, I digress. You guys know that we've covered the Purge franchise quite a lot here at LBQ. After all, love or hate the films and recently the TV series, but it poses a very apt question to the current state of our society. The term zeitgeist comes to mind, a German phrase which literally translates to spirit of the time. And well, I don't know if you've noticed, but things can get pretty scary, and the Purge is at the culmination of those things. Stranger than fiction, right? Right? Well, here's our hypothetical guide to that theoretical survival. Before we jump into that though, you know the drill by now, guys. If you're a fan of this video, the Purge franchise, the survival of the end of days, or just LBQ in general, then go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with our latest and greatest uploads. Also, why don't you go ahead and share this video with your fellow survivalist, your state senator, or your own mother, because knowledge is power. On with the show. Though we've stretched the rules several times in our LBQ Purge series, the song remains the same when it comes to the nitty-gritty. Under the 28th Amendment of the US Constitution, the new Founding Fathers of America establishes one night a year for a populous purge, occurring on March 21st from 7 PM to 7 AM the next day, where all crime is legal, including murder, and all police, fire, and medical emergency services remain unavailable for 12 hours. We're on our own, kids, so how do we stay alive? Let's start with option A, batten down the hatches. As we've seen from the film franchise, an entire industry is built upon home defense during those titular 12 hours, where you can bunker down, pour yourself a cup of tea, make yourself a microwave lasagna, and wait for the whole thing to blow over behind the safety of titanium plating, tungsten steel, and a much bigger bank balance than most of us could ever obtain. In the first Purge film, this is the tactic of the Sandin family, led by Ethan Hawke's character James Sandin, who's built a very lucrative career from installing highly advanced Purge security systems into wealthy people's homes. And well, we know how that ends up, pretty badly. However, in our survival guide, this would be amongst the more efficient tactical moves that a survivor could make. There's a reason that the president has his own private bunker miles below the Earth's surface, and there's a reason that James Sandin's company made so much money. For the most part, his security system works. So if you've got the cash, then batten down the hatches, and we'll see you in 12 hours. For option B, there's a more direct attempt at hiding, and it's pretty simple. Just leave the damn country. Remember when your parents told you to just remove yourself from the situation when conflict was arising? Well, yeah, take that advice when your government decides to hash out a mass extermination event once per year, because that's pretty indicative of a very short lifespan. Just like rats fleeing a sinking ship back in the colonial seafaring days, the same applies to the sinking ship of the United States. Talking of ships, if you own a ship, a boat, a yacht, a schooner, hell, even a dinghy, then get on it and keep paddling until you reach Cuba or Mexico, or wait, does the Purge still apply to Hawaii? Now that's a film I'd want to see. But you get the picture. Even if you don't want to leave the United States permanently, if you're wealthy or fortunate enough to own a seafaring vessel, then your chances of survival will be much higher if you take to the ocean for a 12-hour relaxation session. Yes, granted, there may be some slim chance of Purge pirates, but the odds are slim, and just grab yourself a rifle or two and I'm sure things will go swimmingly. Pardon the pun. In the same vein, if you own an airplane, then you probably already own a private yacht, but it's very important to note that it's much more difficult to keep an airplane in flight for 12 hours than it is a boat, so make sure you don't pick up the wrong keys in your pre-Purge planning. If none of these options apply to you, then I hate to tell you that things are looking pretty bleak. That doesn't mean you can't take matters into your own hands though. No. Far from it, in fact. Option C is Go John Rambo. Now, this is the same application as any apocalyptic event, i.e. a large group of people want to kill you, where the best course of action is to be a survivalist, in the sense that the only indicative factor of your own survival, the choices that you make rather than someone else. As any expert will tell you, in an event like this, people equals bad. So your first priority would be to get out of any high population areas, preferably far before the purge alarm sounds. The more remote you are, the higher the odds that you won't run into another human being, and thus the chances of your survival skyrocket. If you were a real forward planner, you might even build yourself a base camp out in the boonies. I'm thinking electric fences, landmines, tripwires and floodlights, and a nice little log cabin where you can read a book or watch an old movie while the rest of the nation fires ammunition at each other. It may seem simple to say, but your best course of surviving the purge is to just stay far away from anyone insane enough who'd like to kill their fellow human being because their government told them it was okay to do so. There's a lesson in that, I think. Well, what do you guys think? What would be your plan to survive the purge? Got something cool up your sleeve? Let us know in the comment box down below. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in today's video. If you enjoyed this purge play-by-play, then leave us a thumbs up, and to continue on with your questioning binge, feel free to hit that playlist floating shortly above. As always, I've been your host Jack Finch, you've been watching Life's Biggest Questions, and until next time, you take it easy.
Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm Ron Mackenzie Lafergie. There's been a lot of doom and gloom talk about North Korea recently. It's raised a number of serious questions about the safety of the world. But sometimes it's nice to step away from these serious questions and just have a fun little thought experiment. Sometimes you come to some interesting conclusions, and this topic is no exception. You saw the title and you know the drill, so let's hop right into it. It's time to ask the question, what if the purge was real in North Korea? While this may sound similar to our question of what if the purge was real, North Korea is a whole different story. While most countries in the West and even the world have rather similar sets of laws, North Korea has an exceedingly strict system that greatly limits the freedom of its citizens. Some of these are particularly silly, like mandatory haircuts, but others are quite serious and result in strong punishments. Being caught with a Bible can lead to imprisonment or even execution. There's a dating police that watches for couples engaging in premarital relations, which is illegal. There's basically no contact with the outside world, no Western music, no pornography, yes, that's a serious issue, and definitely no speaking out against the government. There's also essentially no internet, and it's illegal to watch television outside of state propaganda. This causes the people to be woefully ignorant about the world outside of North Korea. But on the bright side, the country is totally free of the Big Bang Theory. Almost makes it sound appealing. These incredibly strict laws suggest that the purge could look very different in North Korea than other countries. Rather than destroying and killing, you may simply see people surfing the web, watching Breaking Bad, laughing and playing in the park. Heck, maybe everyone would just stay in bed all day having premarital sex. But one incredibly cathartic event for the citizens that many would likely participate in is trashing the supreme leader. I can see it now. An unmarried couple having sex while watching Modern Family and screaming about how much they hate Kim Jong-un. Now that's a sequel. Not only that, but this would be an amazing chance for many of the people to loot and scavenge enough resources to last them. Food is scarce in North Korea, and the communist government gives many of its citizens barely enough to survive. In this case, it would not only be legal, but arguably moral to steal food from government storehouses, and it would probably be pretty widespread. That said, there's a pretty good chance that the government would just take everything back the next day. Absolute power makes it pretty easy to take back what you see as yours. However, as with most countries, there's also a good chance that the purge would lead to serious violence. In such an oppressed society, there are doubtlessly a number of people who would jump at the opportunity to act out their wildest fantasies, attacking people and destroying cities. North Korea has incredibly strict punishments, often punishing 3 generations of a person's family for a crime. This brutally effective policy would likely cause crime to be highly prevalent and super unpredictable, with some acting out violently simply because they finally could. A number would probably even try to attack the government, but I think it's safe to say that Kim Jong-un would be pretty well hidden during the purge. There is one important thing that should be noted about this. The concept of the purge is simply not psychologically sound. People do not have a reservoir of aggression and illegality inside them that they can deplete one night a year. People commit crime for any number of reasons, whether it's due to psychological issues or simply out of necessity. If someone needs to steal to survive, they can't wait for purge night. This, among many other reasons, makes it super unlikely that this would actually occur. However, as unrealistic as it is in some countries, it's even less likely to be enacted under the current North Korean dictatorship. Just about the only thing keeping Kim Jong-un in power is the vast control the government has on information. This forced ignorance of the people would be removed if suddenly they were allowed to learn about the outside world and see through the lies and propaganda of the government. Granted, many members of the population are aware that they are essentially captives, but if word got around, around, a rebellion would not be out of the question, and could perhaps be considered likely. Heck, if it happened on Purge night, the rebellion would even be legal. This new information would likely contribute to what is probably the most common outcome of the North Korean Purge: mass emigration. It's currently illegal to leave the country without permission of the state, and despite that fact, thousands of people try to escape every year anyway. If they want to leave when it could lead to their entire family being imprisoned, it's clear that many people would get the hell out of Dodge if it suddenly became legal. While there may be a number of citizens that truly are brainwashed, many would take the opportunity to escape the oppressive regime. And now we return to our question: what if the Purge was real in North Korea? Well, the answer is surprisingly interesting, as a purge in North Korea would look very different from other countries, even if it is incredibly unlikely to actually happen. While violent crime would certainly be an issue, a number of other things would also likely occur. For one, looting just to get food for survival would be rather common. People would also take advantage of the removal of the stranger laws, informing themselves about the rest of the world, and just having fun. Finally, the purge would allow the captive citizens of the country to leave without fear of persecution, which would almost certainly lead to vast improvements in their lives. Thank you for watching Life's Biggest Questions. I hope this was interesting and informative, and maybe even inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you like this video, please thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below. While you're down there, let me know what you would do if you were in North Korea during the Purge. Until next time, I'm Ron Mackenzie LaFergie with Life's Biggest Questions, wishing you the best of luck on your quest for answers.
Imagine a world in which one night a year all crime was legal. What would you do? Would you rob banks to increase your wealth? Would you be destructive and destroy homes and buildings? Or would you seek revenge on that one person that always gets under your skin?
The horror franchise The Purge believes that having one day a year where crime is legal will better America and society. But would it really? Would having a purge night strengthen America's economy? Would it lower crime rates for the other 364 days of the year? Or would it end in a bloody, destructive mess? Stay tuned, we'll be addressing this and more in today's video. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan.
And I'm your host, Lucy McPhee. I'm from our sister channel, Top 10 Central Dark. If you're a fan of horror and essentially watching people get scared, you should come check us out right after this video. Lindsay has even made a few surprise appearances over there, once or twice.
And today we are bringing you the video, what if President Donald Trump made the purge legal this Halloween? But before we begin, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get on into the video. The Purge franchise has been a pretty big success. In fact, the first 3 films have scored higher ticket sales for Blumhouse Productions. In the films, the government makes a claim that the Purge is what's best for America. It's a way to boost the economy and allow Americans to let out their built-up aggression, so that for the rest of the year, they are better and harder working citizens. Well, what if the current government gets influenced by this and decides to give the Purge a try this Halloween? What would happen to America? For starters, this would be a terrible idea. If you have seen any of the Purge movies, then you know that a lot of people end up dying. Most of them being innocent individuals that just can't defend themselves from others. So if the Purge was legal, hundreds of thousands of Americans would lose their lives, particularly low-income or homeless individuals. In the films, it's revealed that the Purge is also a way to deal with America's homeless problem. Wealthy Americans have multiple ways to defend themselves. They can afford a safe house and security cameras and weapons, whereas those that struggle financially don't have this as an option. So if the Purge was legal, then this would increase socioeconomic inequality. As time goes on, the upper and lower classes will further segregate. The wealthy will stay wealthy and thrive and prey on the lower class, who are left to suffer. The same thing goes with businesses. Large corporations have the luxury to secure and insure their buildings. Small businesses are the ones that get destroyed and robbed. So large companies will continue to thrive, whereas small businesses face the fear of getting wiped out.
You're exactly right, Lindsay. From a government perspective, a purge being made legal would have perhaps a positive effect on the economy. However, saying that, this wouldn't simply be a trickle-down effect, the big targeting the small. We would also see the small targeting the powerful, wouldn't we? The current election has polarized many people, and with Trump permitting a purge on Halloween, his biggest haters might take aim, perhaps even those from within the White House. Like I mentioned before, this would have drastic effects on the economy, and in the eyes of the government, perhaps mostly positive effects, but this is merely one perspective, and not necessarily the right one. With the purge resulting in looting and destruction nationwide, this would in turn cost thousands upon thousands of dollars in cleanup and repairs, not necessarily something the government would be able to afford each and every year. On top of that, this is a crippling loss of life that affects not just lower income families or the homeless population, but it affects everyone. A purge would have crippling effects on jobs, as Lindsay will be going on to state in the next point. More than that though, there will be an outcry from those against the purge, rallies, protests, and likely looting. Not everyone will be on board for this night of rampage, which in turn creates more commotion, and perhaps even more outrage towards Trump and his current government.
Now, if we look at the other side, some believe that the purge will actually be beneficial for the economy. As I mentioned previously, the purge kind of helps deal with America's homeless problem. Without that to worry about, then more money can be put into different institutions. Less homelessness means more money for other services. Another positive thing the purge would do for America is it would help with unemployment problems. It will create job opportunities for others. I mean, as bad as it may be, the people that get killed that night will need to be replaced by someone else for their job. So maybe you're applying for a job and there's no open spots. Well, come purge night, there will be tons of open spots available. Not only that, but completely new jobs might be created, like people hired as protectors to guard homes or stores, etc. Or other people who are hired after the purge to clean up the aftermath, help pick up and bury the dead bodies, help clean up the streets and buildings, etc. So there we go, way more job opportunities will become available. Then we have people and businesses that would profit off the purge. Companies will start selling purge protective gear or weapons, even merch like "I survived my first purge" tops. This will all help to boost and fuel America's economy. But I feel like I should mention that eventually the middle class citizens that think they're safe won't be. What happens when more and more purges occur? The homelessness problem gets taken care of, low economic citizens get killed. Well, who's next in line? The middle class. So if Trump made purge legal every Halloween, well, this could happen. No one is truly safe, no matter how much money or protection they have.
Back to my original point, a purge wouldn't simply see the rich and powerful turning on the small and weak. It would see the less privileged rising up to reclaim what they deserve. They will seek out the powerful, they will seek out those who have wronged them. It will be a full-out war between the rich and the poor, resulting in a devastating loss of life, and ultimately no one would be safe. You can hide behind your barricades, but who knows who might be waiting to pounce given the right opportunity. We will see neighbor turning on neighbor and those who appear innocent picking up their weapons for a night of crime. All hell would break loose. On top of that, how could you possibly control all of this mayhem? Who says it will come to a standstill after the allotted time? What if in that time the people gather together and fight back against the government who put their lives in harm's way? It could crumble the entire system we have put in place.
I also want to touch on the point that the movie brings up about the purge being a way for Americans to let out their pent-up anger. They are convinced that one day a year where citizens can steal, kill, and destroy will help them in the long run. For the rest of the year, they will be hardworking, law-abiding citizens. But in fact, this won't be the case. Crime would increase. For example, a lot of serial killers throughout history have said killing is like a drug high that they get addicted to. This makes it impossible for them to stop. So once one person gets the taste of killing someone, well then, they might become addicted to the feeling. One night a year might not be enough for them. They might want to kill again and again. So this would increase crime, not prevent it.
Thankfully, we know that this isn't going to become a reality for us, at least not in this lifetime. However, if it were to become a reality, the moral of the story is to be nice to people. Sorry to quote Ellen, the queen of not being particularly nice, but you have to love and treat people with respect, because who knows who might show up on your doorstep on the night of the purge. Someone you were rude to, the person you cut off in traffic. Be kind and you will receive the same treatment in return. Maybe, who knows, people are assholes. It's no holds barred on purge night. No one is safe, so lock up, barricade your doors, and get yourself a panic room. But thankfully, well, hopefully, this isn't going to become a reality anytime soon. But who knows? 2020 has been a weird year. I feel like 2021 is going to be even stranger. 2021 is the year of the purge. I feel it. Let's go.
Furthermore, Halloween is only a couple days away. This is not enough time to prepare. Do you know how chaotic America would get? Some citizens would be frantically running around buying any weapon they can get their hands on. the stress levels would be through the roof. Others might even try to flee to Canada or other countries just to escape America for the day. But obviously some borders are shut, so that wouldn't happen. Items would be flying off the shelves more than toilet paper did. Then what about the people in long-term care homes or in hospitals that can't go out to defend themselves? They're just stuck inside with nowhere to go. Hopefully no one would be that sick to target those places. But honestly, they aren't off limits. Hospitals in America are currently being overcrowded with COVID patients. I bet nurses, doctors, and other medical personnel are tired of having to treat them. So during the upcoming purge, they can rid the hospitals of any and every patient. Which honestly would be a smart move considering that the next day the hospitals are going to be full again. This time with people that got injured on the night.
In the end, having a purge for Halloween would not be beneficial in the long term. Certainly would make Halloween a more frightful event, but not at all in a good way.
Innocent lives would be lost, towns and cities would be destroyed, homes would be wrecked, and bodies would litter the street. Even the government might be overthrown or destroyed.
So let's hope that Trump or any president doesn't get any crazy ideas for Halloween. That's the last thing we need for 2020.
And that's all for today's video. Let's move on to our comment shout out portion. We'll be shouting out comments from the video, What If USA Nuked North Korea? SMWDKC8594 commented, what if Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. were real, as they always solve spooky mysteries which could fit perfectly for Halloween. I love Scooby-Doo, so I'd be all for this.
It would be pretty cool. I mean, I get a lot of comments. I have one sweater that everyone calls my Velma sweater, specifically on top 5.
That's so funny.
I'm thinking about throwing it away now.
No,
but,
be Velma for Halloween, come on.
I'm being Cher for Halloween.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I love Cher.
I know.
Everyone's like, we get it, Lucy, you love Cher.
No.
But no, that would be cool. I'm all for Mystery Solvers Inc.
Oh, Mystery Incorporated.
I'm clearly not a big fan. I'm like, what they called?
Mystery
Solvers.
That's them.
Anthony Paul said, yes, more collabs.
There you go, and even another one. And if you guys like collabs, let us know in the comments below. And also comment down below what else you want to see from us, like what content, etc. Yeah.
Exactly. And let us know if you want me to return. Your answers will be no.
They're gonna be like, I like her sass.
Before I know it, I'm a regular.
Yeah,
I'm like, fuck.
Replacing me, honestly. I feel like you're gonna get a lot of comments about your accent. They're gonna be like, it's so satisfying to listen to. Anyone with an accent, that's what I do.
Oh yeah?
I'm like, oh my god, it sounds so good.
I do get a lot of comments about my accent.
GT Space A commented, what if humans pooped via mouth or nose at least?
I find this so revolting.
That's
like, what?
disgusting. No, disgusting.
Spot on.
There we go.
If you had to pick one though, mouth or nose?
Nose, I don't want to taste
But
it.
you'd smell it constantly.
But taste it constantly?
Ooh, it's a bigger hole to come out. I think I'd rather just get it done.
No.
Out the nose, it would drizzle.
Ew, I don't even want to think about that. No.
Slow drill.
Next one.
Gabriel Smith said, Keegan and Lindsay, Kinsey, Legan, cool ship names.
I wouldn't call it a cool ship name.
Neither of those are cool.
Legan.
Legan. Kinsey. Kinsey's alright.
It's not that bad.
No, it
but
could be worse.
Legan?
No, we forget about that one right now.
No. And that's all the comments we're showing up for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in our next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Life's Biggest Questions for more thought-provoking videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan.
I'm Lucy McPhee.
And stay curious, YouTube.
Bye.
Bye.